Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing great. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. And that you're all having a great day. Don't forget to leave a like on the video. It is a free and easy way to support the channel. A very big thank you to all the new subscribers, to all the original subscribers, and to those of you who leave a comment and who like the videos every single day. It helps out a lot. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So we're back on the, I don't want to call it ridiculous news train. And I know the cryptocurrency news is weird and ridiculous every single day. But as we continue our brisk walk into 2025, there's a lot going on, as always. And a lot of times when I see news that looks ridiculous, we tend to talk about it, and I tend to rant. But I shouldn't be ranting at any point today. I hope not. Microstrategy is in the news once again. For those of you who do not know, or maybe were not here, Microstrategy not only plans on buying up all the Bitcoin, but they want even more of the Bitcoin than they think that is actually possible to have. On top of them being in the news quite frequently, purchasing large amounts of Bitcoin, 17,000, 51,000 Bitcoin, 55,000 Bitcoin. They announced last year, I believe, around autumn, beginning of autumn, that they were looking to acquire an even larger amount of Bitcoin. They had something called like a 21 plan or Plan 21, something like that, where basically over the course of 2025 and 2026, they would be trying to raise $21 billion each year to be able to accumulate even more Bitcoin. It looks like it's beginning due to a recent filing. It says MicroStrategy plans to issue more shares. It actually gets a bit ridiculous, and I wonder how this is all going to play out. Plans to issue more shares to fund their $42 billion Bitcoin acquisition strategy, aiming for $21 billion from equity and $21 billion from debt financing. We heard a while ago, weeks ago, that their recent Bitcoin purchases have equated to around $3 billion, $4.2 billion. With these purchases, they are trying to acquire and hold as a company more than 1 million Bitcoin. I would love to rant and rave once again as to how much of a sin that should actually be, because Bitcoin's for the people. However, a lot of people love this kind of news that these people will be so rich that they basically control the entire supply of Bitcoin in about less than 24 months' time. MicroStrategy is gearing up to issue more shares as part of their strategy to boost. It's not boosting anymore. Like they're just owning. If 6 million Bitcoin is lost and gone forever, and we're around 13 million Bitcoin that maybe actually exists that we know of due to these analytical companies, and them owning soon over 1 million, the ETFs holding over 1 million, like, it comes a little bit insane. This move comes as MicroStrategy's stock soared 420% in 2024 alone. A special shareholder meeting is planned to approve changes in the firm's equity issuance policy to support their ambitious acquisition plans. I can only dream and wish and hope. I am just a person. But what would be great is if we could see in the next 12 months. The next 12 months, if we could have another 2 billion people enter the market and buy up all those Bitcoin before MicroStrategy, that'd be wonderful. So that when Bitcoin does go to $17 million, it's the public who's benefiting from it and not one of the largest companies on the planet. Doesn't that one sound nice? Wouldn't Bitcoin be a lot better if, people owned it as opposed to people who are already worth a lot of money? A recent SEC filing dated the 23rd of December outlines MicroStrategy's proposal to increase its authorized Class A stock. This is where it gets a little bit crazy. And this is where I said, I wonder how this is actually going to work out. This is an insane plan. This isn't like, okay. They want to increase their stock from 330 million shares to 10.33 billion shares. Did you understand that? The stock that they have for their company, they want to raise it from 330 million possible shares to 10.3 billion. And their preferred stock from 5 million shares to over 1 billion shares. This substantial expansion will give the company more flexibility to issue shares for future funding needs. These changes align with MicroStrategy's 21-21 plan revealed in October. Okay, I was right, October, which aims to acquire $42 billion in Bitcoin. So, it looks like it's happening. And I don't know the extent of how crazy this is going to be in that. MicroStrategy, as interesting as this has all been, is probably going to continue to try and acquire Bitcoin normally, even outside of these actual acquisitions. I am terrified to see a world where a company has over 1 million Bitcoin as opposed to 1 million individual people each owning an entire Bitcoin. I can only hope for the best. I can only hope for some kind of a mental awakening around the world where, people jump into it and also, acquire fragments of Bitcoin before they're all gone because the general public, people who aren't into crypto have no idea what's going on, but I'm hoping that they do. 2, people who are already into crypto seem to constantly be losing focus, and that is something that should not be happening when we're talking about the literal demise of the US dollar and Bitcoin being worth several $1 million per coin. So, that's the MicroStrategy is getting ready to do their... This $42 billion is crazy. $42 billion purchase of Bitcoin. And yeah. Let's move on. So I need to preface this by saying, I don't know. I was going to say I'm exhausted, but maybe that's just like my general sense in the last year. We are currently in a predicament where the world's finances, money doesn't look too hot. Countries around the world are showing cracks, and they're getting larger as the days progress. There are news stories constantly popping up about what's happening with Bitcoin in other places. And I've noticed, as I have noticed over the course of multiple years, is that a lot of times a lot of it doesn't seem to be grounded in reality, i.e., remember years ago when the entire FTX thing was happening and everyone was like, oh my gosh, Sam Bankman-Fried's a monster. He's bringing down Bitcoin. And I was like, no, Bitcoin's not going down because of him. Solana was going down because of FTX, because for those of you who want to forget, the majority of Solana was held by FTX and they were buying up more to control the price of it. That's when I began to call it a scam and everyone was like, you're lying, TMI, Solana's dead. And I was like, okay, whatever. We're constantly thrown real world news and people in crypto kind of pretend that it makes sense or that the thing that they're hearing about. So in the news today is China, always at the forefront of cryptocurrency news. The amount of news that we get about China revolving around crypto and Bitcoin it tends to be quite astronomical. And in many cases, due to propaganda and such, people will give us news, making us believe that in some way that China is at fault for the actual thing, or that these things are so prolonged and something must be. You'll see. China and many other countries around the world are not doing as well as analysts thought they would do a decade ago. Do you remember Evergrande? If you don't, Evergrande was one of their real estate companies that basically continuously overextended, believing that growth was infinite. Growth is not infinite because nothing is infinite. The thing about Evergrande and many other real estate companies within China is that they were printing money and continuously taking out debt against themselves, which is great because this is why we're in this like hyper debt crisis right now, basically to create more apartments. The idea was people are going to keep having kids. These kids will need a place to live. So therefore, let's just keep building stuff. And eventually these places will get filled up with people. This was actually the idea. Is not that there was demand, is that they thought that the demand would happen organically. So they created entire cities, and these cities were empty. And they said, okay, city done. Now let's go make the next one. And they were making, if you get a chance, you can Google or YouTube ghost cities in China. And you'll see that there's not 5, there's like over 100, if not more, that I am currently aware of. They're empty cities. And as they began to extend and make more and more and more, rumor has it that they began to use like worse and worse building materials. So you can see videos, you can find them, of people living in China who put down payments or paid for these homes that were also never finished as these companies were building multiple cities at the exact same time. These people show themselves leaning against the wall in their apartment and their shoulder goes through it. And these are like 40-story building, 40 floors tall. Now imagine you leaning against it, breaks the wall. Can you imagine what the weight of the building is also doing? So that began the collapse of the Chinese economy because so much was on the shoulders of this idea of forever growth. People will continue to have kids. The population will continue to increase. More people will move to these cities. Just keep taking out debt. The growth will go on forever. Since then, we're seeing that a lot of countries actually had a lot of money in these investment vehicles within China. The problem is, my friends, and has been for a long time, and this is what I'm about to tell you will come back into play in a couple of minutes. China and many other countries have realized that if things don't go well in your country, people get onto a plane and they leave. It sounds like a joke, but it's true. Back around like 2013, 14, 15, somewhere around there, a lot of larger American companies had already moved into China. This is when you were hearing on the news, everyone should be learning Mandarin. China's going to blah, blah, blah. You remember all those things. And that was because this was idea of this infinite level of growth. So these companies began to move into China and basically they were doing business. They were buying property. making huge amounts of money. Everyone's becoming rich. Yay! But then somebody was like, okay, cool. That's awesome. We're going to move a couple $1 billion over to Singapore, a couple billion over to what? I can't do that. No, I'm sorry, you can't. China began to have policies where they realized that when money was being made within their borders, it wasn't staying there. People were moving their money out of China to what they considered to be more stable countries or more stable investments, as a lot of investors realized that growth doesn't happen forever. So China was like, cool, we're going to start introducing capital controls. Nothing too crazy. You just have to tell us when you're moving around a large amount of money. Does that sound familiar to anyone? And then that in turn became, well, okay, cool. If you're trying to move out money, it can't be more than $1 million per year. And people were like, what did you just say? That then became $100,000. And this is why you'll notice a lot of countries, and even the US, when you're trying to the normal thing used to be like $10,000, and why you keep hearing 5,000 now. There are a number of countries who are trying to make it difficult. Do you understand why Bitcoin's so powerful? The countries are trying to make it so that in many cases, if you're trying to move more than $1,000 outside of the country or even to buy something, you have to ask them for permission. Do you understand that you don't have to do that with Bitcoin? Do you understand when I was telling you over the last couple of years, for those of you who missed it, Visa, yes, that Visa, and PayPal, but mainly Visa here, made a proposal that said, hey, we should integrate Ethereum with the Visa network. And I was like, no. And then the news stories began to come out of how amazing it was. Another rich company here to save us. You know what Visa wanted to do? Can anyone remember? Anyone? Visa, if you wanted to send a transaction with your Ether, they wanted you to send it to Visa, like their Ethereum website. And then from Visa, they would send it to a third party. That third party would then send it to another company. And then that other company would then send it to your friend who you were trying to send the money to. Do you understand that blockchain deletes the need for all of these companies to even be in the space? So every single time I say, I hope that more people understand what the heck is going on, guess what? No one does. No one's paying attention. Everyone feels like they're stuck in the mud. When you look down, there's no mud there. You're just moving slow because you refuse to understand what Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies actually are. You're making things difficult for yourself, as opposed to realizing that we have a brand new system. Do you know the idea of Bitcoin going to $1 million, $12 million, $84 million per coin has to do with the idea of like actual scarcity and usage? Did anyone know that? Anyone there? The idea also traverses to the exact opposite side, where it goes to if everyday people bought up all the Bitcoin that Microstrategy has, if over the years they had accumulated all of this, Bitcoin would still reach those price levels and Bitcoin would be able to be used more extensively as an actual currency. You know what that gets us away from? Capital controls. That gets us away from hearing that we can't move our own money around. That gets us away from what I'm telling you right now about China. So they told companies and rich people, you cannot move your money out of this country. You can't, because you have to have it here. There are YouTube videos about it. You can definitely find them. That turned into, if you remember, a number of years ago as well, because history, it's all there. It's constantly in front of our faces, and people refuse to pay attention to it. And this will happen once again, and then once again, and then once again, and then once again, and then in the year 2047, people will go, oh my gosh, I knew it. Why didn't I buy any Bitcoin? Why wasn't I paying attention? Why do you think all these companies and institutions are so eager to buy what will give you freedom? That in China then turned into people figuring out that there was another way to get their money out of the country. And they turned to art and apartments in other places in other countries. Remember how they did it? Yeah. So Sotheby's and Christie's are two of the largest art dealers and art auction houses in the entire world. And what people in China began to do is they went, I really love art. Art is amazing. So they would go to these auctions and they would spend record fortunes. You can Google it. They would spend $16 million on a painting. $16 million that had recently sold for $500,000. They were spending $22 million on a diamond that was only estimated at $1.4 million. And these companies began to salivate. They went, these people have so much money. They're so greedy. So there were more auction houses that were popping up all around China because they assumed that these people were stupid, that they didn't understand. They were like, they're spending 22x for a diamond? What's wrong with these people? What they were doing is the people in China figured out that the bank accounts for these actual artworks were in China. So they were sending 22 million from their Chinese bank account to another Chinese bank account for the actual art company. And then they had that piece of art shipped to London, shipped to New York. There were diamonds that were going to Canada and going to Australia. And when they got there, guess what they did? They resold those items. Sometimes you can also, for those of you who don't know, you can like directly sell to museums and other things like that. Even at a loss, they still got their money out of the country. So you can buy something for $25 million. You can go to another auction house and say, hey, I have this really big piece and we're looking to offload it for $15 million. Really? That's such a, 15 million is totally fine for us. And you have then moved $15 million into another country. Those $15 million that are now essentially free, you use to buy up real estate and other assets that will basically, continue to make you money. Do you remember all those years ago? I remember seeing all these videos of all these people. Why is Vancouver so expensive? Why is Toronto so expensive now? I don't understand. Montreal's real estate is pumping. That's why. These people were looking for a way to get their money out of the country. So they moved it to another border. They moved it to other places and they were buying up real estate like hotcakes. Crazy, right? How everything ends up working out. So now, realizing that their economy is continuing to falter, China's not doing well. And I don't mean in the sense of like USA. No, I mean like China, like they're really not doing well. The problem is that a lot of investments and a lot of money and a lot of debt hinged on and rests on the shoulders of China doing well. And when they don't do well, everyone else doesn't do well as well. Remember in 2024 when we were talking about how it's expected that the government soon is going to be pushing several $100 billion China into their markets and printing this money and pushing it into it. It's because they're not doing well. So they have to give the appearance of things doing well until they eventually do well again. So in the news today, I had to explain all of that because there's a lot of new people, hello, and a lot of people don't understand how big money actually works. And like the things you hear in the news, it goes a lot deeper because there's so much capital control going on right now. This is why all the rich people are investing in Bitcoin. Do you get it now? Are you slowly understanding why we got news a couple days ago that there are countries who are trading, you can find the video, who have been trading for years in Bitcoin. They have imports and exports and they're using Bitcoin. The rich people realize that the capital controls are getting out of control and will only go crazier. So how do you get around that? If only the average everyday person paid attention, but they're not. That's why I keep screaming to all of you. I hope for the love of ever-loving goodness that you are, that you've had conversations with your portfolio and that you've been able to discover what might be right for you because all the rich people have immediately understood what's going on. The Chinese foreign exchange regulator has introduced foreign exchange rules requiring the country's banks to monitor and flag risky trades involving crypto assets. A lot of money has been flowing out of different countries, and it's because people are using crypto. At the end of December, The South China Morning Post reported that mainland China's new rules will make it more difficult for residents to buy digital assets. It's already a pretty weird process. You have to have like your ID. You have to go to a physical place. There are cameras everywhere, etc., etc. Under the rules, banks must monitor and report risky foreign exchange currencies trading activities. This includes cross-border bets, underground banks, and what they call illegal cross-border financial activities involving crypto assets. You can't control the blockchain. What you can control is people's bank accounts. And you can tell them what they can and can't do with it. What happens when the everyday person realizes that Bitcoin exists? If you missed a news story a number of years ago, there were markets, like flea markets on the border of China and Russia. And we heard about like a clamping down of like these markets. And we were like, what's going on? People didn't feel like taking their local paper currency and going over into Russia and having to exchange it for the local yada yada. And then when they were done, they had to go back and do the same thing. They were dealing in crypto. And that was squashed immediately because if you circumvent the usage of the local currency gets weaker. So what do you have to do? Squash it. Any kind of resistance. You have to make sure that people know that they have to only use your local currency. Do you understand how big and powerful Bitcoin actually is? What we have? I know the majority don't understand. Everyone's just trying to make quick, fast money. That's why the idea of like cashing out of Bitcoin is like almost insane. Do you know how big Bitcoin is? What it's going to become? Bitcoin currently, monthly, is transacting more in US dollar value than some of the largest banks on the planet. At 3 to 5 transactions per second, Bitcoin is transacting more money on a daily, weekly, monthly basis than the largest banks on the planet. Chinese regulators also require banks to track the activities based on the identity of individuals and institutions involved, their sources of funds, and the frequency of their trades. This was very, I don't want to say popular, very all over the place news. Everyone was like, whoa, what's going on? I can't really understand what's happening, or something along those lines. For those of you not looking at the screen, it says China's economy is burdened by years of excess. Here's how bad it really is. Over indebtedness, that's not a word, overbuilding and overcapacity are causing problems at home and abroad. A lot of the articles that I saw that we were just going over about their new capital controls were like, they're trying to stop Bitcoin. They're trying. And I'm like, yeah, of course they are. Because I can't begin to imagine what their numbers actually look like. If they have, so in China, the only way to acquire Bitcoin is OTC, is over the counter. You have to go into a physical location with your ID and with cameras looking at you, scanning you facially, really, to be able to buy it. I assume those numbers have jumped quite recently and will continue to do so. So if the government gets wind that there's 143,000 people in the country who are into Bitcoin, and then that number goes to 1.3 million, there's going to be a problem. Because with those coins, you can essentially move your money how you want. The people who have the power print the money. What happens when they keep on printing and no one uses their money? Do you see what's happening around the world right now? Why it's so significant? I keep saying so much of the news is so US-centric. You are told to constantly focus on Elon Musk. Focus on the guy from Dell. Yeah, he's going to buy some Bitcoin. You're not realizing it's done on purpose. Like that the revolution has begun. Everything is changing. Why do you think rich people are buying all of this Bitcoin? They want to make sure that in the future, they can kind of do whatever they want with their money. Why do you think you're not being told about it? Why do you think I get so annoyed when the other YouTubers are like, because this fractal code is going up and you might want to, I'm like, who cares when you enter the market? Bitcoin's going to $1 million. Do you want all of the power to once again be in the hands of all these rich people? Why do you think we've been getting news for years, if you just missed the other video, that China's already mining Bitcoin, that around 16 countries, these countries understand that the US dollar is collapsing. Why would they be pushing millions of dollars into machines to mine them more Bitcoin? Wouldn't you think that they would be buying up more dollars as it's the world reserve currency? The economy around us is not doing well. As I told you before, it looks like in the next year or two, we will probably see a near collapse of the old system. Didn't it seem weird as to why BlackRock and Fidelity were getting into the market at this exact time? Do you think anything is happening randomly by happenstance? Of course not. China's economy is not doing well and probably will not do well for a while because they built their systems on the idea of eternal debt. I watched a documentary about a number of countries in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and how like they're continuing on their trek to do what they need to do in the future. They made money through petrol and oil, but the demand is going down. That's why you see all these countries changing so quickly, because they got word 15 years ago the demand's going to go down. You got to do something right now. China was like, nope, we're going to stay on this course, do exactly as we've been doing. Crazy, right? Why China lost. This is an article from 2017. It says why China lost about $3.8 trillion to capital flight in the last decade. Remember all the stuff I just told you? That's why. See, now you're all caught up. Now you know exactly what's happening in the world. These people heard your money has to stay here forever. You know how many major American companies are in China and they cannot, when I talk about oversight, the government's breathing hot breath down their necks. These companies can't take their money out. It's just there. So over the course of multiple years, people figured out, they were like, we need to buy art. We need to buy jewelry, and we need to put it into other markets. I remember seeing documentaries years ago about all these people from Russia, wink, and all these people from China, wink, buying all this property in London. And all these people were like, it's unfair, it's unfair. And I'm like, you don't understand, you really don't get what the average person has no idea what's happening around the world. Don't you think it's odd that all these banks are now buying Bitcoin? No one thought it was. Everyone knows that the US dollar is collapsing except for normal people holding the US dollar. Everyone else is getting rid of it. Everyone else is buying property. Everyone else is buying land. Remember how I said before, I was like, if you decide to take out profits over the course of this cycle, please make sure that you buy assets. It's really important because the world is changing really, really fast. And I am mortified. Yeah, mortified's the word. Mortified that the vast majority of people will continue to not pay attention. And I think that's one of the scariest things that we have going on right now. There's a reason why the wealth transfer is happening. There's a reason why this is all accelerating. So always make sure you pay attention. This is another article. It says China crypto trading thrives in OTC over-the-counter markets despite restrictions. Yeah, as I said before, everyone kept on lying to all of you for years. Crypto is not banned in China. You just have a lot of restrictions. You have to go to like a physical location to be able to buy. I assume with the idea that the US is going to be buying Bitcoin very soon, people in China, normal people were like, we need to do something. I need to transfer money all the time. If your capital controls are very strict, but you can go over the counter, I'm pretty sure those numbers are ticking up of how much Bitcoin people have, how much they're gifting, how much they're telling other people in silence or in words. Because anything, for those of you who don't know, that you text or type is always read by the government. So, yeah, record! $75 billion flows into China's over-the-counter crypto market as stocks and property decline. Yeah, crazy, right? People are figuring out really quick. I just need more people in the market. We are going to live in a world where Bitcoin takes over and fiat currencies collapse, and we need more normal people. I'll say it forever. I'll continue saying it forever. And also, I mentioned this one before, showing it to you again because I'm sure we have new people, and also just in case anyone forgot, Bitcoin mining is not banned in China. Everyone has been lying to you for years. I know my channel's not that big, and I keep telling people the news, but you know, my reach is only so far, so maybe you can spread the word. Yeah, you can buy Bitcoin and sell it in China. There are restrictions, of course. You cannot use it as a form of a currency, but you can mine it. Yeah. A lot of people keep trying to pretend this isn't a thing. The government knows what's going on, and they're also trying to procure their own Bitcoin as well. According to the screen, around September of last year, 55% of the hash rate is still in China. And even this article, it's nonsense. It says, despite the ban, there is no... I've almost cursed like 300 times in the last couple days. There is no ban. There is no blanket ban. Those are people who were lying to you years ago to try and get people to move away from China to get the hash rate to go other places. Remember, we were also talking about that as well. A lot of Bitcoin maximalists in America kept on telling people to mine Bitcoin in America. And I was like, that's also going to create centralization, because there was no discussion as to having a Bitcoin mining operation in every single state, which then helps to really decentralize it. Do you remember when Texas had that snowstorm? Yeah, Texas had a snowstorm. You can Google it. And 15%, 15% of Bitcoin's hash rate fell that day because everyone had simply moved to Texas. It can't be that easy to be that stupid. You can go anywhere else, and literally anywhere else. I'll keep mentioning it forever. I'm waiting for other countries to do this. I mean, other countries are doing this, but China still has 55% of the hash rate. So no, there is no ban. You can still mine Bitcoin. You can still buy Bitcoin. Things get even slightly better when you go to Hong Kong. So yeah, just a bit of a history lesson, and hopefully we don't repeat the mistakes of the past where the rich continuously hold all the assets and continuously buy everything and own everything. But I think this may be like the final stop on the train. Everyone had chances before to make sure that they had a good part in all of this, but no, rich people are going to own all the Bitcoin. Rich people are going to own all the Bitcoin. Rich people are buying up all of and are going to own all the Bitcoin. I don't know if I said that properly before. Right. I think that's going to do it for this video. I do hope that you've in some way all enjoyed. Hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.